Welcome back to another video. Today we're going to be talking all things annotation, annotating, just all about how I annotate, why I choose to highlight certain things, why I choose to tab certain things or certain ways, how much I have grown and improved on annotating as I've been doing it, and just your basic get started on annotating guide, if you will. So I'm gonna show you, I have a stack over here. I'm gonna show you all of my books that I have annotated and where I started to where I am today on my annotating, because it is a process and it is just like anything in life. It takes practice. You are not going to be good right off the bat with it. You're just you may, but you're probably going to look back in a couple of years at your previous annotations and just think, why did I do that that way? And I wish I would have done it different. Or you might have some squiggly lines to begin with and you're just not happy with them. So all of those things are true for me today. So I'm going to take you from my first annotation to my most recent annotated book, and I'm just going to show you things I like, things I don't like, things I wish I would have done differently, things I learned along the way, and just show you how much I have improved. I do wish that I did this more often. I do wish I had a bigger stack to show you right now, but it is a slow going hobby. I do have to have inspiration to hit when I want to annotate a book. I pretty much am an annotation artist. It is a form of art and artists need to be inspired to do their work a lot of the times, and that is how I feel about doing this. I also don't ever want to annotate a book and be dragging my feet and not enjoying it or not wanting to do it, because I feel like it will really come across in the annotation. So I want to just take you into the books now and just show you what I'm talking about. I also want to show you the supplies that I like to use and the things that have come in really handy for me and things that I've learned along the way. So first of all, this right here, Twilight, was my first ever book that I annotated. I absolutely cannot stand these giant tabs. It drives me nuts to see this on my shelf. I went ahead and found another copy of Twilight. I also got these special edition covers. Found another edition of Twilight for very inexpensive at the thrift store. And replaced this one because I absolutely hated not only how I did the tabs, but also how I did the annotations, because this was my first ever annotated book. Some of the lines are extremely squiggly. Some of the annotations, just the whole book, they're very, very plain. I literally just highlighted things. Whereas you can compare it to this book that I just recently did and made a video for. If you'd like to go check that out, it was really fun to make. And there's just a lot more to it. It's a lot more in depth. I do underlining, I do highlighting, I do writing on the side of the page right there. I do all kinds of things. I do little doodles here and there. This is like my little dressed up version of annotating compared to when I first did Twilight. So hopefully this is in shot. I really can't tell, but it's just way prettier than, let me just show you one of the annotations from Twilight now, than something like this. Also, this book is very beat up. It was originally from a library and it was in a school. So I always had thoughts that I was going to replace this book anyway. So this was my practice book. And if you are just getting into annotating for the first time, I feel like you should definitely have a practice book. Just a book you don't care about, go to the thrift store. The thrift store sells books, at least by me, for between 50 cents and $3 a piece. Very inexpensive. It's a used book. Just, find something you're semi-interested in reading. Don't find something that you don't want to read. Find something you're interested in reading, pick it up at the thrift store and do your first annotations. And don't be scared to get rid of the book. I am going to donate this one. I am going to put it in a little free library, and whoever finds it and wants it, have at it, but I'm embarrassed of the annotations, to be 100% honest with you. And I custom did these edges of this book. So I was really debating even annotating this, but I really do want to annotate this, and I want to do those really tiny mini tabs, whereas These are very small, but I want to do the ones where they just barely stick out from the page. So I do plan to re-annotate and reread Twilight again so that I can do my new version. But yeah, I would highly suggest just get a practice book that you do not mind what happens to it. If you have to throw it away because it's so horrible and you mess up so bad, like, don't feel bad. Just do something like that from the thrift store that you don't care about for your first time, so that there's no pressure, because annotating should be fun, and don't put pressure on yourself for this, like, for real, because if you want to get into this hobby, like, make it fun for yourself. Don't make it like this big thing where you're scared to do anything. I did not start writing in my annotated books for a while. My first couple, I think I started writing in my fourth one that I did. Before that, I had these little sticky notes that I would write on and put in my books. So I know this one has a handful of them, and I did do some underlining in this one, which was my second one. But like, I had these little circular transparent sticky notes that I would just write my thoughts on those, because I was just scared to permanently put my thoughts in a book. Looking back, I should have just put my thoughts in the book, but I think the sticky notes are also cute, and they are a really good option for you in case you are nervous about it, which is totally understandable. Some of my favorite ever highlighters are these zebra midliner ones. So I had the Mr. Pen highlighters from Amazon. Highly recommend you do not get the Mr. Pen highlighters. I used those in my first couple of books that I annotated, and they did bleed through on a couple of the books that I was very upset they did that. So they are not my recommended brand at all. I actually will tell you, absolutely do not get those, because they suck. And they could definitely ruin your book. So I love these. They are very inexpensive. A little bit more expensive than the Mr. Pen ones, but for good reason, because they are just great highlighters. I did find mine on sale at Walmart, I believe, is where I actually ended up getting them. And like a pack of these, which is a pack of 5, I believe I got them for $6. So it's pretty much like $1 highlighter, which is not bad at all for something like this that is just really durable, gonna hold up. They also are double-ended, which is really cool for just getting really creative with annotating. So one end has this chisel tip one, which I feel like I should get closer so I can show you, but it's got this chisel tip, and the other end has this flat tip that I love using the flat tip for doing little doodles, and I use the chisel tip to get a perfect highlight. I would definitely suggest the 15 pack. I think I spent maybe $20 on this, maybe less. I want to say it was like between 12 and 20, something like that. I don't think I was really worried about the price at the time, because I just was so fed up with those Mr. Pen highlighters that I wanted something that worked really well. And one of my friends recommended this, and then I ended up getting them and fell in love and wanted more. So I found both of these sets on sale for like $6 each. So I think that's all the highlighters I'll have. I definitely don't need more. This gives me perfect options for colors. I never run out of colors. I always have the colors that I want, and I just love them, and I would highly recommend you get started with a pack of the zebra highlighters. And if you just get a set of 5, $6, that gets you started, and you really can't go wrong. Of course, tabs. We have to have tabs. So I did buy these containers on Temu. I do shop on there occasionally for annotation supplies. I really don't love buying anything else from them because it's just very cheap. But for annotation supplies, it's actually pretty legit, and I'm pretty happy with it. Don't buy highlighters on there. Do not, please. I beg of you to not ever buy a highlighter from Temu. But for tabs, totally okay. So let me open this. For tabs and organization containers, like, these are pretty durable, and I love how they just fit everything in them, and they're perfect. They stack on top of each other. I love them. So I got a pack of, I don't know, thousands of these tabs. That's why I have 2 cases of them. But everything you see, I pretty much got from Temu. I was gifted a couple of them, and a couple of them I think I might have picked up at Walmart at one point. But other than that, like, all of these I know in my hand, they're the same size. They all came from Temu. There is so many colors. There's so much to choose from. And what I liked about the listing that I purchased from, it was like a double one. So you got one full set of 1,000 or whatever it was, and then another full set of 1,000, and it was like both thousands were the same colors. So you got like double set of everything, and I need that personally because I use a lot of tabs when I'm tabbing. I don't like to hold myself back. And then it's, especially if you order from Temu, it takes forever to get to you. So if you're in the middle of annotating a book and you run out of tabs, and you can't find the same color ones, like, oh my gosh, it's so upsetting. So yeah, I love that they had the double set. I would definitely recommend doing that because, especially for them, I feel like they put less tabs on the individual tab board overall. But if you get the double set, it's totally fine, and you have more than enough tabs usually to finish a book. Let me show you. Also, I'm going to open this other one because a couple of little tips. So these were the little transparent notes that I was talking about. I would recommend maybe starting off with something like this, or even a sticky note. Like, you don't have to get as fancy as this. I also got these off Temu. They're really inexpensive. I got a little pack of them, and I think I have like, I don't know, like 6 or 7 of these little individual circular things that I use here and there. I do use them. I do like them. I'm not as scared to write in my book anymore, so I don't use them as much anymore, but I know there are books that I have in mind that I will still use them in, because I maybe don't want to write in them, or I want something else to stand out a little bit, so you can use that note to make something kind of pop off the page, you know? So I really like that too. Actually, the other thing I wanted to show you is in here. So let me open up my little set. Here it is. Okay, so I have this little annotation board, and it doesn't seem like a big deal, right? But it actually is. So you definitely want to get yourself one of these. There were annotation tabs on this. I just took them off because I have been using this as my highlighter guide. So you just open your book, take your end that it's sticking out a little on this end, stick it right into your book, and it holds in there perfectly. It's also a ruler. It's a perfectly flat, straight line. You stick it in underneath where you're wanting to highlight at, line it up with your line, you know, and then just highlight right above it, and you can lean on the ruler end of it, so it just makes annotating faster and prettier, and it makes sure that every line is perfectly straight. So that really makes me feel good when I'm annotating. What I would suggest though is having 2 of these, because one I like to use for my highlighting and one I like to use for my pens, because I have used it for both before, and the pen seems like it just leaves a little bit of ink on the edge, and then if you go ahead and go over it with a highlighter, the highlighter like grabs the ink and it kind of smudges, and it just doesn't look the best. So I like to keep them separate for that reason. So that's a little tip. But that definitely, I feel like after I got that, it kind of was life-changing. You can do that with these, no problem. They make a perfectly straight line and everything, but it just doesn't sit in your book as nicely as that one does. So that one is my favorite. These, I got myself a pack of gel pens. Back in the day, I used to collect gel pens when I was like a young kid. And I had so many, and I needed to get some because I didn't have any. So I got some gorgeous gel pens. I got these metallic ones. Those are my favorite. They leave this really cool line. Let me see if I can find it. Yeah, so this one right here where it says I left her, I circled that in the metallic ink, and it just shimmers in this really cool way. And I love the metallic ones. I just got a pack of them, and they just came with all of these. So I got some metallic ones, some neon ones, some glitter ones, and some regular ones. So we got lots of options in here. Don't ask me how much they were because I don't remember, but I know I got these at Walmart too. I just ran in one day and I found these with the zebra liners, and just got them together. And this is what I started my annotating with. So I love them. They just bring color and an extra little something to the page. These are a recent addition that I just ordered from Temu. They are just every single color pen you could think of, but the beauty of them is they have this really fine point, and I will put the details of it in the description and or on the screen so you can kind of read what I'm talking about. but it's got like an exact width of the point to it that they just write really well. And not only do they write well, but they just underline really well. You know how you have a thicker pen and it just leaves obviously a thicker line on your page? I had that and I didn't love how it was looking for annotating, so I really wanted a thin point pen. So I had that for a while, and it was just a black one, plain black one. I didn't have any colors. And then recently I saw on Temu that they had this big set for 13 bucks. Now, some of these I've gifted to friends, so I don't have all of them anymore, and some of them are in my little annotation case. But it was like a pack of 30 some odd pens that were like every color you could think of. And they're these really fine point, amazing pens. So I have recently added these to my collection. I am obsessed with them. I love them. I could not picture doing an annotation without them. They're amazing. And just, I wanted to show you this little pouch. I also have this little pouch on Temu because I just didn't have what I wanted. I couldn't find what I wanted in the store either. So it's got 3 separate areas. This area over here, I like to use for my annotation tabs, just storing them. This area in the middle, I like to use for all of my miscellaneous pens, like my gel pens or the pens from Temu that I was just showing you. And then this side I use, I use for all of my highlighters, and it's cool. Right now I don't have them in there because I just threw them in there when I got done annotating, but it has these little hooks that you can literally just, it holds your highlighter just like that. So it's really cool. So that is a must. You've got to have a little annotation pouch. So you could totally pick these up at Walmart for like $1. But it's just got one little section, whereas I wanted one with 3. And I believe I got this for like $3 on Temu, and it's held up really well. So yeah, also always look for coupons for Temu because they've always got some type of like special offer they want to offer you. I also want to just show you some of my annotations. I just want to show you like what they say, kind of how creative I get and that type of thing, and also just show you like where I started and where I am now. I also want to just take one of these so that I can show you my little guide. So I like to make an annotation guide at the front of a book, and all of these books actually, except for Twilight, I went in completely blind. I didn't know anything about the book other than the blurb. And it was my first time reading it. I know a lot of people don't do that. I know a lot of people only annotate on rereads, but for me, I just decided I want to wing it. I want to just jump into this head first and see what happens. So, how do you make a guide? Because I know that was a huge question I had when I first started annotating, and it's very intimidating making a guide for your book because you're just, especially for something you're going into blind where you just don't know what's going to be important to you. I feel like maybe I just got really lucky, or I just don't really like think that deep into it, maybe. I don't know, but personally it has really worked out for me. So what I like to do is I like to read the blurb on the back, find out who the main characters are, because it usually always tells you who the main characters are. Write their names down in the front. So this one had 3 main characters, so I picked all of them as annotations. And then I knew this was a romance book, so I also had romance as one of my tabs. You could also do like love, you could do a favorite quotes tab, you could do emotional, you could do exciting, you could do important. There's so many tabs you could do, but for this one particularly, I knew it was going to be sad and I knew it was going to be romantic. So I picked, my other 2 tabs are sad and romance, and I kept it really easy, really simple. I had 5 tabs total. Clearly tabbed it a lot. And it came out really, really, really good. So yeah, I also do this thing where I put a little heart on my tab that it is my favorite quote of the entire book. And for this one, I had 2 of those. So that is just something I personally do. I've never seen anyone else do that, but it helps those 2 little favorite quotes stand out. I know people do favorite quotes with like a certain color tab, but I just really like doing it this way because it's very personal, and every single one of my books, all I do is find the little heart, and I know that that's my favorite quote. So that's just something I do. Maybe you want to incorporate it, I don't know, but tabbing guides are really hard, so don't put so much pressure on yourself. and don't overthink it. I think those are like the two most important things I could say about making an annotation guide for yourself. Whatever you think is going to be important to that particular book. So for this book, I did the two main characters. I did one for love, one for sad, one for OMG moments, and one for memorable moments. So this one had a lot of tabs. This had 6 different ones. Normally I like to keep it less than more, just because I know I'm gonna tab a lot anyway, and the more topics I give myself to tab, obviously the more tabs I'm gonna have. So I try to keep it, like I said, yeah, less than more. I think it's important for me personally. Some people don't find the need to tab a book to death like this. I do. I relate. There's so much in books that I'm just like, I can't wait to flip through and reread this part. And I think that for annotating a book, that is probably the most important thing you could do if you're looking at annotating a book. It's just like one of those, I cannot wait to go back to this tab and read this line again. Anything like that stands out to you in any category that you've put down, that's what I would annotate. Also, I have this rule for myself where I go in with a black pen and I just underline things instead of highlighting. And I like to do that and not tab. I just like to have random stuff underlined in books because it helps me to not over highlight things, and also just I think it looks pretty, and it's just something that stood out to me in some type of way, but it didn't necessarily fit into any of my categories. I wanted to switch down to the view of the book so you can see more so what I'm talking about with tabbing. So actually, let me start with the guide because I want you to see all of that. So this is how I first ever did my tabs, and I wrote the categories on the tabs themselves. After that book, I switched to doing it like this just because aesthetically I thought it looked better and it was more readable than this. Like this one you can't even read. That says Jacob. You can't even read it. So if you have a darker colored tab, you've got to write it below. Otherwise, you're not even going to be able to read it. So that is just one of my very first tips that I wanted to tell you. For this particular book, I made this little pulley, which is really cool, and he sparkles, and it's so funny. And I wrote one of my favorite quotes down here. That is actually, I just only did it for this book. I didn't get as fancy with the other books, but this was my first one, so this is just how I did it. So I'm just gonna do a little flip through so you can see. So wavy lines galore right here. Do not judge this book too hard. This was my first one I ever did. So here we are. Wavy lines, really big tabs. So that's what I was talking about with the Mr. Pens. They bleed right through your page. And I was getting so annoyed at these Mr. Pen highlighters. This was just a tab for Bella. Another little tab, another little tab. Also, the Mr. Pen highlighters did that where it just really bothered me that there was that thick line right there. They're just not the best highlighters, so yeah. But that's basically it. I just did really simple highlighting. There's nothing crazy. It all looks pretty much the same. It's just different colors. Yeah, so let's move on to a book that's not as boring as this one. So this was my second book I ever annotated. This is a thriller. I didn't know how annotating a thriller was gonna go. I was really nervous about it. So I picked our two main characters. I picked shocking and I picked interesting points because I just thought we're gonna have that in this book. I didn't know. I really just was going in blind. So did a little decoration right there, and I was starting to feel more creative doing annotating on this book than I did in the Twilight book. Still very basic annotations, still using my Mr. Pen highlighters because I hadn't found the other ones yet. finally had bought those gel pens though, and they were, you know, helping me make things a little different. I wrote that in there and I hated how it looked. So after that, I started using those little sticky notes. But it was just, it's cool to kind of flip through and see my reactions. I was messing around with these little dotted lines in this book because I thought it looked cute. Also, this is what I was talking about, of underlining something instead of highlighting it, so I don't have to have so much tabbing. Also, like, I just didn't feel like it was important enough to tab, but it was something that stood out to me, so that's why I did that. I also love doing a highlight and circling a word. I just like how it looks. I think it's just, it breaks up your regular highlighting. Same with this. Highlight and a little underline of words that really jumped out to you when you were reading it. Things that, I don't know, for whatever reason at the time, I felt like I wanted them underlined. Messing around again with that little dotted line. Didn't really like how that looked after I did it, but, you know, is what it is. Gotta learn somehow. More highlight, underlining, little doodle. My first ever doodle in a book right there. This is supposed to be a lock. It didn't really look like a lock. Didn't really love writing that. Again, I was using that really thick pen to write with, so I just didn't love how my writing looked with it, honestly. And those fine point pens really changed my life when it came to all of that. I also was not using something as a guide for my underlining or highlighting, so my lines were not the straightest. So these hearts totally bled through and it bothered me. But I think they look cute on this page, but just hated that they bled through. I also like over underlined here and didn't like how that looked. So there's a lot in your first and second book that you don't end up liking and want to change. Here's my first use of those little transparent sticky notes that I just wanted to write a lot, and I totally could have written that here, but instead just chose to do that, which I don't mind because it does like help it to just jump out at you, and it gives a little bit of extra something to the book. So just really, you have to find what you think works best for you, and each book is going to be different than the last book. So I think that's enough of this book. Let's move on to my next book that I annotated. So this one, I had a lot of pressure on myself for this one because the author personalized it for me and signed it. And I was just so excited about this, but also really nervous. So I picked Memorable, Sad, Love. Sarah and Madeline are two main characters, and I just went with that. I did a little decoration on here that I didn't end up really liking, but we're not going to talk about it. And this was the book that I really started with that fine point black pen that I really love how it worked out. I also started using one of my little annotation tab guide things to use as a ruler. That started working out way better. You can see the difference on how straight the lines look compared to the last book. I was still using these. I was also writing in the book, which I really like how my writing looks better with the fine point pen than the fat point pen. So I was okay with writing in it. I also was loving using these different colored gel pens for underlining in this book. I know I did that a lot. I did my first little drawings in a book. I did this. My friend gave me the idea to do this, where you take a quote that I highlighted here, a quote, and you just write it along the side of the book. And I absolutely love that, and I still do that to this day. Just little doodles. I think just little doodles, a little writing like this, just anything you can think of to just glamorize a book, like just go for it, you know? Don't be scared of doing something, because a lot of the times, like something like this where I just took a risk on it and just decided to go for it, I ended up really loving it. And now I look back on it, I'm like, that's so cute. I'm glad I did that. So yeah, that's this book. You've probably got the gist of it. I feel like. I was trying a lot of new things in this book because I just really wanted it to look really cool. I will move on to my next book. So from here on out, I have all author signed copies. So I was very nervous for all of these books. I picked my little guide and just was winging it. These were all first time reads for me. I started being way more experimental with this book than I was in the past, doing more drawings, just getting cuter with it, just trying to really make things stand out more than I did in the past. I feel like in this book, I was really starting to become comfortable with annotating, more so than I was in the past. I still have some wavy lines in here because sometimes I got lazy and I just didn't use my little guide thing. So, you know, it is what it is. I'm still just glad that I annotated it and I still love how it looks. So I love the doodles. Like, I think the doodles make annotating so much better. So if you are able to, I would definitely do some little doodles, even if it's as simple as a heart, you know. And then these, I think they really just make the book so much cooler. So I love those. Let's go ahead and flip to my next book. Got this one and one more, so we're almost done. This was the one I was kind of showing you. This one came out really, really good. I really took my time with this book. I really incorporated everything I had learned in the past in this book. And absolutely just love how this one came out. Like, the little doodle. Yeah, I love flipping through this one because it's just so cute. I loved that quote. I love the circles too. Like, I think the circles just make the book so much more interesting. There's just more to look at. This line says, I made Miles smile and I drew little smiley faces. Like, just little custom little things like that, I feel like are just so adorable for books. Okay, moving on to the last one because I don't want to bore you to death. Probably my favorite book I've ever done. It is my most recent annotated book, so of course it's gonna be my favorite. Like I said, you get better and better as you go along. Every book you do, you're gonna like more probably than the ones in the past, but you're also not gonna dislike your books from the past. The only one I dislike is the Twilight book because it was so plain, but I'm also glad that I was able to do that so that these other ones could look so cute and so cool. So yeah, that's that. I don't want to like bore you to death and like flip through the whole thing. So I'm gonna just do this really quick so you can kind of see. So that is pretty much it for my annotating guide, my annotating tips, tricks, tour, annotation artist out. If you have any questions, if you need help annotating, if you need help getting started with annotating, please reach out. I'm so happy to help. I actually made this video for someone that did reach out. So they had watched my Twilight annotating video and they asked if I could kind of go more in depth about annotating. So this video is for you and I hope it is helpful. I hope you are able to get into annotating. Have fun with it. Remember, it is not something that is so intense and you need to pressure yourself on. Just have fun, enjoy it, and don't be afraid to make mistakes. So thank you for watching. I post all the time on my Instagram if you would like to look over there and find lots of bookish content, or also DM me over there. I am totally open to that. Please like and subscribe if you've watched this whole video. Because I would love to see you back here every Friday for a weekly video that I try to do, but I've been slacking on lately, so apologies for that. But I'm going to try to get back to that in the new year. I have lots of cool ideas, and I'm going to be doing lots of videos in the future. So thanks for hanging out today, and I'll see you soon.